All right, what is shaking, y'all? Episode 32, Golden Mike Live with your boy, Mark Cordone. Today we have Linda Evans. Linda Evans, computer programmer. I rehearsed this on the pre-show, remember? Dancer. What kind of dancer?
Yeah, I did something called Nia, but I just dance because I love dancing. And I'm in a show chorus now, too. Can you hear me?
Already freezing up? Are we already freezing up?
You froze up. Am I still good?
I think I froze up because I started jazz dancing. So I'm not going to jazz dance anymore. I'm going to close a couple more things here so we don't have anything freezing. What kind of dancer are you? Am I back?
We lost you, Mark.
I will never jazz dance again.
I scared you away.
I crashed.
Crazy. You're kind of locking up again.
Evans, coach and author of the book Enlightened Weight Loss. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I don't know about y'all, but as an entrepreneur, as an author, I had unenlightened weight gain. So I'm like one of those stress eaters. So I would love to talk to you about that, Linda. For those of you who haven't met me, again, my name is Mark Cordone. The computer crashes when I jazz dance it again. I am a positive psychology coach, which means two things. Number one, feeling good. Number two is feeling and living in fulfillment. Are you feeling good and living in fulfillment today?
Oh, me? I am. Yes, I am. I thought you were asking the audience.
No, I'm asking you.
I am definitely feeling good. And I'm so fulfilled. I'm just able to just hang out here.
That is awesome. And you know what? What a good idea to ask the audience right now. For those of you out there who are feeling good and living in fulfillment, can you give Linda and I some hearts? Can you give Linda and I some hearts? Let me see you make a heart, Linda.
Heart? Wait, how do you make a heart?
I'm making a heart wave. I'm making a heart wave. That's awesome. Let's see those hearts, y'all. Ritu just said no more dancing. No more dancing. She was on the live show pre-show with us. So Ritu, thanks for joining us. Hi, Linda. Hi, Mark. Can you see it, Linda? Can you see when they post now?
I can. I see it, yes.
And Ritu is living with some heart. So Ritu today is feeling good and living in purpose. Now, it's a Thursday, y'all. It's close to the weekend. You may have had one of these weeks where you're like, oh, crap, I cannot wait to make it to the weekend. I am not feeling good today. I'm feeling sick, or I'm going through some transformation or transitions right now. I'm going through some growing pains. And I'm not necessarily feeling completely fulfilled right now. Well, you know what, y'all? That is okay. It's okay to live like that, right? Maybe not forever, but it's okay to feel the feels. So give me a thumbs up if it's just one of those days and you're doing the best you can to make by. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up, Linda. Give 4 thumbs up. Look at you, are so awesome. So awesome. Now here's the big one. Here's the big one. Whether you're having an up, whether you're having a down, whether you're all around, having an all around day, it's all over the place, but you're hopeful about your future. You're optimistic about your future. Give me a big old wow face. Can you give me a wow face? Oh my God, that was one of the best ones ever. That was one of the best ones ever. Sue Solari wants to say hi, everyone. Yup, Thursday and finally warmish in Chi-Town. It's good to see you.
Are you frozen,
What?
Mark? Oh, I was seeing you frozen. Are you back?
I am absolutely back. I am absolutely back. So let's just start right off. What is your story?
My story is I've been someone my whole life that kind of saw surface things and always knew there was something below the surface with family dynamics. I come from a family where we have a lot of overweight issues. I myself have, like, since I was maybe 12 years old, kind of always struggled with, like, I should look a certain way, and always in sixth grade, like, remembering having to be on a diet or gain some weight. And so over the course of my life, I've discovered a program to help, like, uncover what is in our way, what stands in our way behind the scenes of any of these crazy patterns that we adopt or crazy things we do that we don't know why we do them. Like, I knew consciously better than to say, you know, my body makes a difference, or I need to lose weight to be an okay person. But some part of me didn't know that. So for many years, I was on that diet train of up and down dieting, always having to losing weight and then having to lose it again because I gained it all back. So for me, I finally uncovered that when I became conscious of what was really behind the scenes, why I was doing this, or why people in general do this, that became just like my life mission, to not only with weight loss, but relationships and all the other things we do, to really uncover what did we learn that maybe doesn't serve us anymore, maybe kept us safe and happy as kids, but now it's time to, like, reevaluate. Does that really serve me?
So let me ask you this: like, when you were little Linda,
Mm-hmm.
baby Linda, and you were talking about understanding things, or you saw things superficially, but you knew that there was something below the surface. Was this more than just dieting things? Because now you're doing a lot.
Oh no, you froze
Start
up
out.
again. Oh, there you go.
Did it start out just as sort of the dieting thing?
Actually, no, it started out more as relationships, because I'm the baby of the family. So I have
Okay.
four older siblings. And so, like, just trying to make their dynamics work out, that they were always fighting, or why are we not happy? Why are people not happy? And I was like the little mediator, little kid trying to stay safe. So it started with relationships, and then relationships became, as a teenager, around weight. Like, like, how do we have relationships? And then body image and weight as part of my family dynamics came into play. So yeah, it really started about trying to get to know what makes humans tick so that I could stay safe in my family. So.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. And by the way, if it does click in and out, just stick with me, because
Okay, gotcha.
you're coming. So we will click in and out today, but, like, let's push through it. And if we can't hear anything, I'll definitely, like, signal to you. But yeah, we're good to go. Now, when it did come to a certain part in your life, and where you were like, okay, because you were talking about having a breakthrough. Like, what did having a breakthrough actually mean? Like, what did that entail for you? Was it just part of your, like, I don't know, my prefrontal cortex just got bigger and I just understood things more? Or was there an actual event or events that you can pinpoint that were like, yes, this was a changing point where I understood things on a much deeper level?
Yeah, there it wasn't really one event I can pinpoint. It was that I have been on the search for this kind of knowledge of becoming more conscious. So basically getting to live more fully, to see what's really at play in my life. So I used everything that's a conflict in my life, and that was different at different times over the last 20 years. Sometimes it was my weight. Sometimes it was my relationship. Sometimes it was hating my job. So every time I had one of those, I had this tool and a group of friends and people that did this work with me. And we would take each other through these processes and say, what can you see here? Why is this still a pattern that repeats in your life? And so it was a series of these patterns that when I uncover what these patterns are, they no longer had a hold on me. And then I was ready for the next challenge. So it's like I would get a whole big relief around weight, for instance, and then I get in a relationship where it was a crazy person, and why am I in this relationship? So each time along the way, it's like an unraveling of the different places where stress comes in and these old patterns repeat themselves.
Okay, so I'm actually hearing you say that along the way you didn't go at it by yourself. Like there were actually people that were reflecting back, like, what is it in the pattern that you're seeing? What is it in the matrix that you're identifying, right? Deeper. Who were some of these people and how did you identify them?
I did a system called the Body Talk system, which is an energy healing system. And through that system, we learned another system called Breakthrough. So it was kind of a system taught by other people, and the people that were training to do it, we kind of all got together. And I became an instructor of this system, and I've since developed my own version of it. So I became an instructor, meaning I teach seminars to help people in a weekend, basically, do this work and learn how to do this work with other people so that we can get together as tribes and say, hey, you know what? If you want to see another way of looking at this event in your life, let someone from the outside come in and help you see it, because we don't know what we don't know, right? So if I call it, we have an inner guard dog. So what I have in my book and what I talk about is we have this inner guard dog. And this guard dog learned that our treasure is the little rules for safety that we learned, like don't ever cry, or, always look strong, or like those are rules. And this guard dog is always protecting them. So if somebody like pushes my button because they highlight like, you acted stupid here, for instance, right? Then my little guard dog is going to go, rawr, and it's going to yell at you, and it's going to blame you, and it's going to make you the problem, right? Even though it's my wound, it's my old problem, but my guard dog doesn't want me to go there because it's too scary to say, I want to change. I don't want to change. I want to keep my old status quo. So the guard dog's going to bark to try to keep me from looking at something new. So just by seeing that and loving the guard dog, it was meant to keep us safe. We would never kick our guard dog, right? Like our dogs are here to keep us safe. But now we have to tell it, you know what? This is no longer safety, little guy, right? Like, I need a new pet.
I absolutely love the way that you have framed that I've heard people use the word gremlins. It's an inner gremlin talking in your ear. In talking with neuroscientists, they're like, it's the same exact mechanism that when you come close to like in Chicago, there's a since Sue's, you're in Chicago, there's that one building and it's all glass. And if you step on the glass and just peer onto the outer, Chicago skyline, I heard that you get like really like weak in the knees and stuff, even though you're safe and protected. That's your brain, that's your guard dog saying, oh my God, I must run. But then also at the same time, we don't think about the fact that self-protecting guard dog that protects us from jumping off of buildings is also something that keeps us safe in moments when we don't need to be safe. In the same way that there's old archaic mechanisms that we go into like fight or flight mode when we're trying to go to sleep, and we don't need to go into fight or flight mode, but our brains go there. It's called Sears Tower. It was Sears Tower, now called Willis Tower. Thank you, Sears. I was just checking to see if you're still watching. But I'm glad that you brought that up, Linda. Now, in terms of working with folks, like it's one thing to take something that you don't know and then move it to the known. And you're like, this is something that doesn't serve me anymore, right? How do you actually move it from, okay, I know this doesn't serve me, but I'm still getting scared shitless to make a decision about my life, or I keep repeating the pattern, even though that I know then I'm going to end up with the same result. You know, like same thing, like when I get stressed out, like, do not eat that like donut, man. And like I'm still picking it up and I'm just going into like an automatic behavior. Like, what is part of the letting go that this doesn't serve me anymore that turns into a behavior that is more so moving you in a
You're kind of locked up, but I'll keep going. I think I've heard the whole question. So for me,
okay, there you are.
There we go. So for me, the number one thing is understanding. So if I understand this dynamic, it reduces the stress so much, right? So I may notice like, oh, I'm eating this donut and I can't stop. But instead of beating myself up for that, I was like, oh, I bet there's something I haven't seen yet, right? So if you have a tool to now say, I'm going to use this and I'm going to dive deeper, that already reduces the stress. And it like already kind of puts a stop in the pattern. So I just want to invite everybody watching that it does not serve you to continue to bully yourself into change. So bullying yourself. Say that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Linda, even as you're saying that, Linda, like I'm realizing how hard on myself I am in like like the guilt and the shame that's associated with that, and sort of there is self-giving that's going on there. It's really like pounding on myself, that's going on as I say that out loud. Is that something that you see with a lot of your clients and the people that you work with?
Yes, I see it with all of humanity in most cases, right? Like, I mean, it's so subtle, right? Like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Like even in my own day, and I know better, right? Like all of these little times we're like beating ourselves up, thinking that that's going to, like, I can guilt myself or willpower myself or shame myself into change. But that just keeps us in constant stress. And actually, that's a guard dog technique. So the guard dog is the one doing that so you don't make a change. So Yes. So step number one is this understanding, like, oh, this is one of those patterns. And it's there out of love for me from my childhood. I haven't done anything wrong. So number two is this whole kind of be gentle and kind with yourself, like you would with a really good friend. Like, you know, I would never say to you, Mark, God, why are you eating that donut? Like I just personally never would say that, even though we were just meeting, right? Like I still would not say that to you, but I say it to myself, right? So
that's really interesting. I'm like, yes, I would never say to another person what I sometimes say to myself. And it really is very interesting, that kind of dynamic. So I'm hearing a certain amount of like enjoyment that you can have while you eat, and you don't have to do something in shame.
Yes. And so, my invitation to the people I work with is that if you are in the middle of not being able to control your eating, right? Which like until you discover these things, it's like you said earlier, right? Like just, it's okay to be feeling however you're feeling is what you said earlier, right? It's okay to be eating because you don't know why. So one invitation that's very simple, like small steps are huge. Like if we can take one small step, is to enjoy your food. So I'm eating ice cream. Let's say I know ice cream is bad for my body, but I really want the ice cream. I'm eating it. The thing we do that makes it really bad for our body is to hate eating it while we're eating it, right? Like I shouldn't be eating it. I shouldn't be eating it. Right? So like we don't enjoy it. We're eating it anyway. And now we're just telling our body how bad it is, right? So my invitation is like, take a bite and savor it. And like, okay, consciously, I'm going to make a decision. I know I shouldn't be eating this, but you know what? I am eating it. So I'm going to sit down and eat it. So that's another tip. Like just sit down when you eat. Just give yourself a little more conscious awareness that you are eating and enjoy it fully. Like I'm eating this ice cream and I love ice cream. That's why I'm eating it. So I'm going to fully savor it. And the invitation is to take out all of those voices or recognize them and say, hey, I hear you, but right now I'm going to enjoy this bite, right? Like don't push it away, but really, I think how we eat is as much or more important than what we're eating. Because if you're fully savoring your food, you will be more satisfied sooner. So
what I love,
eat less.
and what I love about you bringing up the term savoring, because that's a huge thing that's being looked at right now in the positive psychology world, is sort of this idea that it automatically sort of makes you mindful and present of what's going on. And so I definitely hear you talking about how we eat, but then it really begins to dissociate things that we've also always coupled, like the idea of pleasure and guilt, you know. And when you kind of dissociate those two, it's just pleasurable, and you're not unconsciously eating. It's kind of beginning to hit me now what unconscious and conscious eating is. You know,
Right.
I had someone once they opened a candy bar, you know, and I was like, I'm not eating that candy, and I took a bite into it, and they're like, actually feel it melt in your mouth. And then feel the crunch when you get to the middle. Like feel the temperature in your mouth. And I'm like, wow, I really don't do that. And I end up eating like 10 candy bars like in the course of a week. And like this is like something where I'm eating less and I'm really enjoying this like tenfold. Is that what I'm hearing from in translating it to your piece with say how you eat?
Yes.
And enjoy. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you'll also find that sometimes you talked about that pleasure guilt thing combined.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're eating out of habit. Like you might have just, when you were a kid, popcorn was your favorite thing. So you may not even be tasting it. And when you do take a moment and taste it, you might not even want popcorn in that moment. You might want a candy bar, right? Like it
That
also
is
helps
true.
you pay attention to, am I enjoying this? Because usually what we're enjoying is the escape from our emotion at the moment, or we're enjoying some other stress reducing quality this food had for us. So if we actually take time to taste it, it may be that it no longer actually is enjoyable, like taste wise.
You know what?
Both sides. Yeah.
You know what's really interesting too is you know, I'm thinking I'm just going through all the possible habits that I've acquired, and I'm thinking now about how much I hate popcorn. I'm just not a fan of popcorn, right? But like when I actually go to the movies, you know, I'm probably going to go and see the Avengers in the next week, right? That is like the one time that I want to buy a big old tub of popcorn and eat it. And I'm thinking back to why is it like that? And I'm like, I remember that this was something that when Dad would get off of work, we'd always go to the movies. He'd take me, he'd show me how to sneak into the movies, then go to the front and then get our big old tub of popcorn and like completely like binge on that popcorn. And now it's almost like it's like a behavior. Like when I go to the movies now, it's like straight to the popcorn rack. I don't care if I'm hungry. I'm just going to fill myself on popcorn. And I love the fact that sort of the idea of living more consciously would help me dissociate like, okay, these are great feelings of nostalgia that I'm having. I really don't want popcorn and that fake butter right now. You know? Is that also what I'm hearing coming through? Like how we ingrain patterns so much or with experiences and attribute those experiences to things like popcorn when it was really just hanging out with Pops.
Yes.
And I couldn't wait all day to see him.
Yes, that's exactly it. So either we're trying to like get an old comfort back to handle like a stress in the moment, or it is this habit and like, oh, I just want this enjoyment equals popcorn, right? Like in this moment, it has that association, like you said, right? Like it links an old habit with a current hope that it's going to bring back some level of comfort. So yeah, that's exactly.
I think we might have missed that last part again, Linda. So if you could repeat that, like, because we're definitely having Jorge tuning in. Hey, Jorge from Puerto Rico. Elizabeth, who was our guest earlier this week. It's talking about how she still eats peanut butter at the end of a long day because it's one of the things she had in her dorm room. And she was a total studier. Yeah, if you watch she was a total education geek for a very long time, still is. Then Sue was also talking about that little voice being our ego, so the folks connecting with again, that idea of popcorn, I think we might have missed you. And so if you could repeat that, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Yeah. So I was saying that it is often that we don't realize until, we take this pause and do the work to kind of look within, we don't realize that we might be associating our enjoyment of something with an old comfort, right? Like what we're really wanting in many of the times we eat, especially when we're not eating consciously to me just means I'm sitting down, I'm looking at and enjoying my food. It doesn't have to be some fancy thing. If we're not doing that, oftentimes it can be some sort of distraction or some sort of tie to what was comfort food for us. I had a client recently that didn't trust herself to know what to eat. And we kind of came up with, wow, her mother never felt comfortable when she fed her because she didn't breastfeed and she never knew if she was feeding her enough. And it's a story her mother told her. So it kind of tied that's why I still to this day don't trust myself or haven't, right? So just by seeing it, to go to your earlier question, that does all the work. Oh, that's all it is. That's where it came from. I'm not some crazy lack of willpower person.
So. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, good God, Linda, you're talking about things that when you talk about going deeper, I mean, it's not just last
year, no.
It really is things that can be 20, 30, 40 years in the making, even things that people have forgotten about.
Yeah, for sure. We're kind of I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, totally can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, the research says that the majority of the things we've learned, our beliefs and our rules, come from 0 to 4 years old. So,
oh my God,
I just want to invite you to think about that. And if that's true, and a lot of our patterns are from then, why are you beating yourself up because you haven't figured something out, right? I know we know better. I should know this. I should be able to change. But until we see, where this came from and what it was trying to protect us from or to give us, it's kind of, really, we're actually following our own rules. They don't serve us anymore, but we're not wrong. That's my biggest takeaway that I want you and anyone watching this to really if I could have changed, I would have, right? It's there's this sense of there's something wrong with me, but it's really just, I haven't seen it yet. I'm in the dark about this thing and I just haven't seen it. I have blinders, and all it takes is to get a new perspective, and that will take off, first of all, this self-bullying that is not helpful. Yep. And then we can start to do different processes, different things to say, oh, what else did I learn that is keeping this old pattern alive that I don't want to do anymore? Eat the fake popcorn butter, right?
So let me ask you this: is the process of that process aware and then working sort of backwards and deeper? Is that something that someone can do by themselves?
It is there. I have a process that I call the Enlightened process. That's why the book is called Enlightened Weight Loss. And in the book, basically, I do talk about it's a 7-step program, but the book covers the first 3. And the first 3 steps is taking this awareness from blaming your food or yourself or someone else and turning the camera to say, wait, what's really going on? How am I really feeling? So to get in touch with your true emotions, like you mentioned at the beginning of this call, right? Don't run from it. Yep. You know what? If you're angry, if you're sad, if you're frustrated, be with that. And you'd be surprised at how much more present you become for everything in your life. But so those steps of okay, and how can I see something new? you can become your own inner detective. So that's what I call it. It's like you have an inner detective that can start asking questions like, why do you feel this way? And then take it back. It is helpful to have someone else come in and ask us questions that maybe our own ego, I think someone called it an ego, what I call the inner guard dog, isn't going to want us to go to. So sometimes it's helpful to just have an outside voice. And the process that I teach can be done, I teach it to show others how to do it with others as well. And once you do it a few times, it is a little easier to start to at least take off that pressure of I'm doing something wrong, what's wrong with me, to curiosity and like, what could I find out here? So it turns it from like, there's something terribly wrong with me and I have no willpower to what is going on here? I can't wait to find out. It's a whole different feeling. Changes everything. Yeah.
I think someone once called it, and actually I don't remember what someone once called it, but the metaphor that they used was in the same way that a detective is sort of looking for clues. They're looking at it in a non-judgmental way, in an objective way. But then if we start tracing back to the way that we used to look at the world when we were between 0 and 4, there's the brain looked at the world much differently. And it's almost like we had a lantern and we were looking around the world and it was dark and the lantern would illuminate what's in front of us and we'd be in awe of the way that the world presented itself to us. And so sort of when you're talking about that idea of curiosity, like I can feel that sort of childlike wonderment in discovery.
Yes. Yes, okay. Exactly. So that's what I invite anyone I work with to, first of all, come to this work or come to them to their own process like a child, which is the number one thing is curious, right? Like what does a child say all the time? Why? Why is the sun in the sky? Why are the clouds over there? Why? And that can be so helpful. And a lot of times we think we already know it all, right? Like we've learned all these diet things. We've learned all this brain chemistry stuff. We learned all this, psychology stuff. But sometimes it's just simply like, what else do I get from this, eating this popcorn like you did? Right? Yeah. Just take a step back and just ask why and be curious, not judgmental. Like, oh gosh, why am I doing this? If you ask a child with mean, harsh words, do you think that child would stay curious, or would they maybe
No, not at all. Not at all.
So neither do we, right? Yeah. So that's another trick of the guard dog, is to continually ask and be demeaning to ourselves, and it's not helpful.
Okay, so I'm hearing like more than one inner thing going on here. I'm hearing an inner guard dog.
Yeah, we got to be a little schizophrenic.
I'm hearing an inner detective, but I'm hearing some sort of like there's some sort of inner wisdom or inner child, or what do you call this?
Yeah, I do say your inner innocence. So I've called it your inner innocence because it's any time in our lives when we were present, right? There's an innocence about it. There's not a sense of like, I already know it and, I have to, whatever. I already know it. Like I can't learn anything new. It's a curiosity. And it tends to coincide with an inner child, right? Like often I'll bring into the process when I work with people a younger version of the person to see like that's who you're really treating like a bully. Like you're being a bully to this innocent, beautiful little you that is just trying to stay safe and get love, right? So it's not helpful anymore. It was helpful to somehow just like cope, right? Like that's why we pick up these patterns. We have to cope as little people. But now we're big people and we can like reparent ourselves. Yeah.
We are big people. And just to throw this out, Sue, we just drained her battery. So thanks, Sue. Looking forward to checking out Linda's book. Can't wait to let you know the links for it. It's actually in the show notes too, but we'll talk a little bit. Actually, you know what? This is a good time to talk about the book.
All right, let's do it.
So the book came out a few months ago on Amazon, and talk to me about the response that you're getting from folks.
Yeah, the book came out. I had a lot of people be interested in it like right off, that people that have worked with me, and then people that they recommended it to. And I'm getting a lot of like, wow, I became so much more tender by reading this book. And I realized how it's not helpful, how, mean I've been to myself while I'm eating. And the response has been, even with just a couple simple tips and not even having the full process, it's been super, super helpful for people to get a new perspective. To me, you change your perspective, you change your life.
And I think that's, sorry, Linda. I think that's the big thing that I've really taken out of, like, before any of this, of the behaviors can be done, there really is this major introspection or shift in the way that you see the world, whether you want to call it perspective or awareness or consciousness. All of it is sort of this enlightening process of sorts, right?
Yes, you're shining a light on what you didn't see before. That's how simple enlightenment is, right? You're shining a light on something you don't know anything. Your guard dog pushes it into the unconscious. The unconscious just means you no longer are conscious of it. Because it'd be too many rules to try to stay conscious of. So it's a healthy mechanism. We push it into the unconscious so that we continue to act on these rules, but not have to think about them. We'd go crazy if we had to think about all of them. So This process is like, think of an iceberg, right? Like the consciousness of our life is just the very tip of the iceberg. And the unconscious is this whole underneath. So this process of shining a light like lowers the water level. So you're getting more conscious of what used to be unconscious because it's now safe, because now you can, it's time. So,
now, are you finding that there are similar themes with folks as they go through the unconscious, sort of making conscious what has been unconscious, or is that really an individual journey for every person?
A little of both. When I teach in different cultures. So I've taught in Europe, I've taught in America, I've taught in Australia. And when I teach, oftentimes there will be a cultural similarity. Like for instance, in Europe or in Germany, there was a lot of, my voice is dangerous. And we kind of think it came from the war, right? Like you had lights out, you could not make noise or you would, like life or death, like from your inheritance. But in general, there are also just human things, right? Like I'm not good enough as I am, like some very universal things we learn as we grow up to survive our world, right? Like I have to do what the big people want me to do. So I have to, no matter what my instinct is, I better do what they want me to do. That's universal.
And that does sound like something that would be, that sort of universal thing would be something that an inner guard dog that wants to belong to a tribe, whether it be right now or generations and generations and generations ago, it would make sense that with things like sense of belonging, and especially generations ago where you needed to be a part of a tribe to survive, right? Yes. The true predators, that would be something that is still a part of our guard dog.
Yes. And right? babies need people to survive. We're not independent when we're born, right?
Absolutely.
So we're born very dependent on those around us. Yeah.
Absolutely. So this is super awesome. And like, as we started, we were talking about eating and those type of habits. But as we're going into things like inner detective, inner guard dog, inner innocence, like this is something that is much bigger than just the behavior of enlightened weight loss. This is almost like enlightened living that I'm seeing going on here.
It is, right? Okay. And that is what I realized that I've done this work for enlightened living, like coming to and oftentimes when you find one trigger, it will unravel a lot of your stories and you will get clear on many areas of your life by starting with one area. So I could do a process about relationships and it might highlight why I don't like my work, and it may highlight why I'm eating in different stressful times. However, what I found with weight loss and why I wrote the book specifically about weight loss is that I know a lot of people, we've done a lot of work. Many of my friends in my tribe are very aware people. Like we are building our consciousness, and oftentimes the last piece is weight. So sometimes I think because it's such a visceral thing, our body weight, our body size, our safety mechanism is like eating, right? Like to survive. I think that's often why weight is one of those last things for people to get a new look at, because we tend to look at things that are like, if someone's yelling at me, I know that's pushing my button.
Okay.
If I'm eating popcorn in a movie theater, I don't necessarily think of that as a conflict to deal with. So I think that's why sometimes the weight loss is like, no, that's something separate. That's just me with no willpower.
Sure.
So, yeah.
No, in terms of this idea of weight, I mean, this is a society in which there's been a certain portrayal of the ideal man, the ideal woman, right? What do those sort of ideal, sometimes photoshopped, unattainable figures, what type of impact does that have on us in terms of the way that our inner detectives, inner guard dogs, and inner innocents show up?
Right. Well, not only our parents aren't our only influencers, right? Like, I call this that we are like imprinted with our beliefs. And, from the time we're little, we've been watching TV, we see images like that becomes what, like you said, it shines the light on this little section of our world. And that is what becomes what should be, right? That's all we see, right? So if the media, if we're bombarded everywhere, like not only TV, but online now, and even radio, and everyone's telling us we should get thinner, like assuming we're already not thin enough, right? So even now it's even more, but I think since we were little, we were bombarded by these. So that's part of our imprinting for sure, that we have that to like judge ourselves against some weird ideal. Because, I was in Malta, and Malta has these 5,000, I don't know how, very, very ancient goddesses that, like, these ancient sacred sites. And the goddesses were these huge, round, voluptuous, very large bellied women, because and the Buddha, think about the Buddha, the enlightened Buddha, right? Like, his belly is big. It's like the life force. So at some cultures, bigness is the thing to achieve, right? If you
that's who I strive to be like.
It shows how
my popcorn.
Like, you're regal if you have weight, right? So.
Yeah, and I do remember studying it might have been Western civilization, the paintings of the Renaissance, right, where it was almost a status symbol. Exactly. Right, it was a symbol of status. So I'm glad that you did talk about that, because that is such a big thing. It's what I'm picking up is it's less about the weight loss that you're doing. Let's see what we've got going on here. We've got she's feeling it. Molly McCarthy, Uppenshaw, who's here. She's saying, hi y'all, it's good to see ya. Ritu coming back. Wait, the final frontier? Alexa's coming out. Alexa, where are you coming in from this week? Helen saying hello to us. Are you a fan of Genesis, by the way, Linda?
Me? I probably, I never know names of bands and songs. If you sing me one of the songs, I'd probably say yes or no.
Okay, so she don't even know my name, but I guess she likes me just the same. Yeah. So the lead singer of Phil Collins actually watches our show. So awesome. Phil Collins, it's good to see you.
Oh, hey, Phil!
He's here, and not at work, but he'll have to watch the first part later. Phil, it's good to see you. Check in. Keep working on the music. We love you. And keep writing music consciously. Alexa, it's good to see you as well. So a lot of people tuning in still here, Linda. So Linda, let's talk about your book. Let's talk about the book about this inner detective, the inner guard dog, the living.
I lost you for a second there, so I missed the question.
Okay, so how do we just stay in touch with you and find out more about what it is that you're doing?
Oh, okay. You can email me at Linda at enlightenprocess.com. So ENLIGHTEN process.com.
Awesome. Awesome.
And
Awesome.
I'm happy to, if you write me and say you want a copy of the book, I can send you a free copy of the book, as well as these 5 tips that we didn't really talk about the 5 tips, but there are, we kind of went through them, but didn't number them, right?
Okay. So look, let's leave it to surprise. But I would say even more reason to email Linda. You're going to get a free book and tips we didn't even get to in this 1 hour episode talking about enlightened living. Be present while you eat. I gotta say it. Enjoy your food as you eat it. Start small. We missed that one.
I've kind of mentioned it. Like you only need to one thing at a time. Yeah.
Okay. What do you mean about reducing stress?
So we have there's a physiological process of cortisol creation when we're stressed. So not getting enough sleep, eating while you're like reading your emails, or like we tend to eat, like we're just in constant stress usually in our lives. So what I found is taking a meditative moment in the day, even if it's taking a few breaths before you eat. So you're resetting and saying, I'm going to sit, I'm going to eat, I'm going to just breathe. And now I'm just going to eat. And so it's like the meditation can reduce stress, and all it means is sitting still for any amount of time. It doesn't mean some big fancy, I got to do it for an hour every morning. Really just taking a moment away from electronics, away from your thoughts, just taking 3 conscious breaths and then eating reduces the stress. And then your body will take the food and process it more efficiently.
That is super fascinating. And I believe that our esteemed guest that about in her billable hour, being able to be conscious with your food, just even if it's for a few minutes while you're taking your lunch break. And I think this is a big one. You hinted at it, but I want to put it on the screen. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah. We're up against a lot, right? With all those images, with our imprinting from our childhood, with all the stories of why we're looking for comfort through food, you're not to blame. And so, and even if you were, which you're not, how is bullying yourself going to make you want to do something more? It doesn't, right? Like we would never, we have a fight against bullying in schools, right? So why do we do it to ourselves? It's not helpful. And it's so common that is, to me, the number one gift that I would say, if you take nothing else away, is be kind to yourself. In every moment, if you catch yourself being unkind, then don't beat yourself up for being unkind. Like it happens, right? Like, oh, I should have known better. So like, okay, well, don't beat yourself up now. Take a break and say, oh, I caught myself, and celebrate that you caught yourself.
It can turn into a crazy loop. Yeah, that's wild. So Linda, you've said enough. Phil Collins came back from the studio to listen. Thank you, Phil. I have the email up there, the 5 tips Linda will go into more detail with, and a free book if you email her now about this. Don't forget to catch the replay. But Linda, I don't know if you've seen the way the show ends, but now at this juncture, you are going to end the show because a golden mic is coming from the ceiling. And your coach and your editor on the book also inspired me about this golden mic idea. And so the golden mic, in tribute to her and all the folks watching, stops in front of you for 2 minutes. It translates into every language. Everyone in the world is listening. Linda Evans, your golden mic is live now.
Awesome. Well, who you are is a child of God. You are a miracle to have a body, to have consciousness, to be alive in this world and breathing right now. Everything you do is okay. Everything that you are doing is part of a process of living and growing. If you can at least remember that in times of stress, or in times of wanting to run away, or in times of beating yourself up, take a breath Look around you, realize the miracle that you are to be in this body, no matter what its size is, no matter what you're thinking at the time, no matter what you're going through. You are alive, a live human being, which is a miracle in itself. What it takes to become a human being is just beyond miraculous. We don't even understand it fully. So I invite you to celebrate yourself more often. And when you catch yourself in a pattern or habit of beating yourself down, trying to change yourself, trying to make yourself better, and thinking that if you bring out the bullwhip and you make yourself change, you're going to be better. You don't have to do that. There's nowhere else to be. Who you are is a miracle and a child of God. So celebrate that, be kind to yourself, and your life will only continue to expand even more miraculously, and you'll enjoy it. That's my gift. That's what I'd love to tell you.
Linda Evans, you've said it all. This has been episode 32 of The Golden Mike. I am Mark Cordone. I am not a jazz dancer. I will never do it again. Linda, thank you for putting up with the jazz dancing and the interwebs acting up. It was an amazing episode. Y'all need to replay it, like it, love it, want some more of it, and share it out. Again, I'm your boy, Mark Cordone. Final thing is, if you're feeling good and you're living in full fulfillment, my question to you is, what are you going to do to serve the greater good? We've got another Golden Mike for you tomorrow. Linda, thank you again for being present with us. Amazing stuff. Email her now. We are out. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.